There's a type of person who confuses everyone around them. They stay calm when the whole room is falling apart. They laugh at things that should hurt. They notice what you never said out loud. And somehow, they show up for you harder than anyone else ever has. Most people think they were just born that way. But that's not the truth. The real truth is darker and more beautiful than that. These people didn't start out this way. Life made them this way. And today, we're going inside the psychology of what actually happens to someone who has been through too much. Stay with me, because if you recognize yourself in this, you need to hear every word. Let's start with the thing people notice first. Someone who has been through real hardship has a completely different relationship with stress. Not because they're emotionless, not because they don't care, but because their nervous system has already been to the worst-case scenario and survived. Think about what that actually means. When your brain has already lived through the thing most people only fear, losing someone, hitting rock bottom, watching everything fall apart, ordinary stress stops feeling like a threat. It starts feeling like noise. A work deadline? Someone being rude? A situation going sideways? They've handled worse before breakfast. To someone who has already survived their worst day, most bad days are just inconveniences wearing a costume. And here's where it gets interesting. Because this calm isn't peace. Not exactly. It's something harder to earn. It's perspective. The kind you can only get by walking through fire and coming out the other side. So the next time you see someone who barely flinches when things go wrong, don't assume they don't care. Assume they've already been somewhere you haven't. Which leads me to the second trait, and this one surprises people every single time. Here's something most people never realize about someone who has been through a lot. They are reading you. Constantly. Not in a suspicious way, in a protective way. When your survival once depended on sensing danger before it arrived, you develop a radar most people simply don't have. You learn to read the room before you've said a word. You notice when a smile doesn't reach someone's eyes. You feel the shift in energy before anyone else acknowledges it. You hear what people don't say, a slight pause before someone answers, a laugh that comes just a half second too late. The way someone's voice goes flat when they say, "I'm fine." Most people miss those signals entirely. People who've been through too much, they catch them immediately. They don't just listen to your words, they listen to the silence between them. And this is why they're often the friend who texts you out of nowhere on the exact day you needed it, who asks the question nobody else thought to ask, who sits with you in pain without rushing you out of it. That's not luck. That's a skill, built over years of learning to read emotional environments just to feel safe. But behind every gift, there's a cost, and we need to talk about it. Psychologists call it hypervigilance, and it's one of the most misunderstood things about someone who has survived real hardship. Their brain never fully relaxes. It's always scanning, always calculating, always running quiet background checks on everything around them. Not consciously, not on purpose. It's automatic, a survival mechanism that was useful once and never got the signal to stand down. You'll notice it in small ways. They prefer sitting where they can see the door. They notice exits when they walk into a room. They've thought through scenarios most people would never consider. They rehearse conversations before they happen. From the outside, this can look like anxiety. Sometimes it is, but often it's something different. It's the wisdom of someone who learned that chaos doesn't always announce itself. And here's what breaks my heart a little. Many of these people minimize everything they've been through. You'll hear them say, "It wasn't that bad. Other people have had it worse. I'm fine." They've spent so long being strong for everyone else that vulnerability starts to feel like a betrayal of who they are. Being okay became their identity. Admitting they're struggling feels like losing the one thing they built to survive. So they carry it quietly, and they carry it alone. Which is exactly why what I'm about to tell you next matters so much. People who've been through too much develop one of the most complicated relationships with love you will ever witness. On one side, they are fiercely loyal, the kind of person who shows up at 3 a.m. without hesitating, who remembers every important detail about your life, who fights for you when you're not even in the room, who loves in a way that feels almost overwhelming because they know exactly what it means to not have that. But on the other side, they struggle to receive that same love back. Asking for help feels uncomfortable. Being vulnerable feels dangerous. Depending on someone, truly depending on them, triggers something deep and old and afraid. Because at some point, someone or something taught them that depending on others comes with consequences, that love can disappear, that safety isn't guaranteed. So they end up living in this quiet contradiction, craving deep connection while unconsciously keeping people just far enough away to stay safe. They want to be known, but being known feels like handing someone a weapon. And if you love someone like this, patience is everything, because the moment they finally let you in, that trust cost them something real. Honor it. Here's where the story shifts. Because everything we've talked about, the hypervigilance, the guarded heart, the quiet loneliness, it doesn't stay a burden forever. It becomes a superpower. People who've survived difficult chapters become extraordinarily adaptable. Change doesn't rattle them the way it rattles most people. Uncertainty doesn't paralyze them. When the plan falls apart, they don't freeze. They pivot. And if needed, they pivot again, because they've already lived through plans falling apart. They know something most people are still afraid to learn. Falling apart doesn't mean the end. It often means the beginning of something more honest. And then there's the humor, the dark humor, the kind that makes some people uncomfortable, a joke at the wrong moment, a laugh during something heavy, comments that shouldn't be funny, but somehow are. This isn't insensitivity. This is alchemy, the ability to transform something painful into something survivable. Every dark joke is a quiet statement. This hurt me, but it didn't break me, and I refuse to let it have the last word. That's not a coping mechanism. That's a declaration of survival. Here's the paradox that defines them. They'll stress over the small things, which coffee mug, which side of the bed, which exact routine, but remain surprisingly calm when the big things fall apart. Job loss, a relationship ending, everything changing at once. Why? Because they've already accepted something most people resist. The big things in life are never fully in your control, so instead of exhausting themselves pretending otherwise, they focus on what they actually can control and release the rest. This is why they seem like contradictions. Tough but gentle, guarded but generous, realistic but somehow still hopeful. They've learned to hold two truths at the same time, that life can be painful and beautiful, sometimes in the exact same moment. That's not confusion. That's wisdom, earned the hard way. And underneath all of it, underneath the strength, the humor, the adaptability, there's something softer that almost never gets talked about. They grieve quietly, privately, not just for the people they've lost, but for versions of themselves they had to leave behind. The version who trusted easily, who entered a room without scanning it, who laughed without wondering what came next. They miss that person. But here's the truth I want to leave you with. That person didn't disappear. They transformed. That lightness became depth. That openness became discernment. That carefreeness became something richer, a chosen peace, the kind you only understand when you know what its absence feels like. And without even realizing it, they became something rare, a lighthouse. Not because their life was easy, not because they were naturally fearless, but because they learned to navigate storms that would have destroyed most people. And now, without even trying. Their presence helps others find their way through the dark. So the next time you meet someone who stays calm when everything's breaking down, who laughs through things that should level them, who notices what you didn't say, who shows up without being asked, remember, that person has probably carried things you'll never fully see, survived things they've never fully talked about, and chosen every single day to still show up, still try, still believe in people. That's not damaged goods. That's a human being who went through the fire and decided to become the warmth. And that is worth more than most people will ever understand. If something in this video stopped you, even for a second, that's exactly why Mind Untold exists. We go deeper than the surface, into the psychology behind why people are the way they are, into the parts of the human experience that most people feel, but never have the words for. If that speaks to you, subscribe to Mind Untold, hit like if this hit home, and drop a comment below. Which trait hit you the hardest? I read every single one. This is Mind Untold, and we're just getting started.